Welcome to the Gathering Greenhouse, a podcast to help us grow together. We are excited to have Andrew with us this morning, and John, and then our silent partner, Matt, who
sits in the corner,
has a Tampa Bay hat on right now, and a greenish shirt which matches his greenish shoes. So
he does
give you a little visual.
He's got
what
it
do you call
all.
that color?
Hyper turquoise.
Hyper turquoise.
Hyper turquoise.
Hyper turquoise.
Are those Jordans comfortable?
Yes.
I don't believe you.
The fit be dripping, son. Be mad dripping over there with this
It's
hyper
hard.
turquoise.
See,
what Jordans are those?
Should we rate his Riz?
Jordan 1 lows.
I'd say it's hard. With getting that color of shoes is difficult to match the rest of your outfit with. Because you did a pretty good job, though. It's just like a slightly darker version.
So if you guys don't know Matt, or at least see him often, you'll notice he has
Who sees him often?
probably just me.
Okay.
But we work together a lot. But
He hides in the shadows.
Matt has like a bunch of like hat, shirt, and shoe combinations of like that he wears together because they're all the same color.
Yeah.
Like so you have like this, and they're always like outrageous colors that no one else can like wear, but Matt does. So
Hey, I respect the game, man. Although lows, though, right now, the kids would say the lows are not in. You got to get the high tops.
They got the highs.
I've got high tops at home.
I think they always can tell,
I
like
have
the
a
older
pair of high
generation, because they
tops,
wear
too.
lows.
Yep.
Because the
High
new
tops.
generation wears the
all
high tops.
yeah.
So
Yep.
I'd buy the lows too.
Okay, so we have
Dorks.
some stuff we're gonna do today. Talk about sermon and whatnot.
And whatnot. The app. We're gonna talk about whatnot. The app.
Yes, exactly. No,
Nice.
No, but my favorite part of your sermon was Indiana Jones.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest, that was just your story about getting a whip and then going out in the woods. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't think of that when I was a kid, because I didn't personally have a whip, but we had a whip at our house. Not, like my dad loved like Western type stuff.
Okay.
And that's how we ended up getting a whip on like one of our trips to Texas.
And you never thought about going
And I never thought about going out in the woods and acting like Indiana Jones with it, but that is a great idea.
So how I got
I'm so
that-
upset.
How I got that whip is actually a funny story. And it was funny
Like,
because
was it one you could actually crack?
Oh,
too?
yeah.
Okay.
So it was funny because my mom was in the first service and I heard her chuckling because the story of me getting it, I was probably 8 or 9 years old and we went on this spring break trip.
Yeah.
And we went down to Mammoth Cave. Mm-hmm. And there
That was a spring break trip,
Yes.
Mammoth Cave.
Yes, man. Mammoth Cave. Well, because we were studying.
What
like,
did you do for the rest of the time? Been there. It doesn't take all
Hey,
that
people
long.
with a whip. That's
Yeah. We got the whip and
Was the whip at Mammoth
no.
Cave?
So we
That'd
were.
be a great place to sell whips, though.
It would be.
When we say whip, we're talking about like a long piece of like leather, not a cool car, right?
Yes.
Right,
correct.
right.
Yeah. For all those
Just want to make sure I knew. What
But
Gen
this-
Z.
But the story gets good because we found this zoo there called Kentucky Down Under. Which is an Australian zoo in Kentucky. I know that probably.
those Kentucky
Does this
kangaroos.
exist still?
Yes, actually a few years
Okay.
ago we were back down there and stopped in. You could literally walk around kangaroos, like you
That
get in a
sound like
kangaroo
Tiger
pit.
King or something.
It is kind of one of those
Okay.
like zoos that you like get a golf cart and
Because
just
Mammoth
ride.
Cave's not in Kentucky, is it?
It is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's right on the Tennessee border then, right?
No,
It's not.
no.
Okay. I feel like
There
it's
might
only
be
a half hour from Nashville. I could be wrong about that.
Several
It
mammoth
could be
caves.
close to. I know it's like southern Kentucky.
We
but
went to it after when we were down in Destin, and we stopped in Nashville on the way back, and then after Nashville we went there. But I could be wrong. It could have been
Okay.
much further. In my head, it was like only like a half hour. Matt, where are you going to Google for us? He looks angry right now.
I've been to Mammoth Cave twice. I know
He
it's
doesn't want to be our
Kentucky.
Google
I know
person.
that it's in Kentucky.
How far is it from? Say, how far is it from Nashville? Because you probably can't look up the Kentucky border.
But so we go to the zoo, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's an Australian zoo in Kentucky. And there was a gift shop and there was a whip there. And I was like 8 or 9. I'm like, I want that. And so the story goes like I bought it. And I'm like, they're in line to go into this cave at the zoo.
Yeah.
And I'm like in the corner just doing this. And like, I'm like flinching because every time it comes up, it's almost like hitting me in the face. And my whole family just sitting there watching me. And like, there's like people just watching. Like, what is going on? Who gave this kid this whip right now? So
It is from Nashville, an hour and 31
Okay, so I was way off.
an hour and 31 minutes. Yeah, I know it's like From Northern Kentucky, it's about a 3.5 hour drive from Northern Kentucky.
Okay, cool.
Going
well,
south.
that's pretty awesome.
That's how I got the whip. But yeah, then I was like Indiana Jones when I got home, man.
Yeah,
Because I even had like this pellet gun that looked like a revolver, so I felt like I was it.
Yeah, the things that I wanted to do with my whip was like you ever see the like people would like whip a cigarette out of someone's mouth?
Yes,
that would be something that I'd like to do.
I was actually, we were talking about Church's Chicken earlier.
Yeah.
A totally different conversation. But I was telling the guys earlier, last time I was at a Church's Chicken, which was probably like 10 years ago, I was on a mission trip in Texas, and we were not in a very not great place in Dallas. And across the street, we were watching two guys. They started like having like an altercation. They were yelling at each other. And the next thing we know, one of the guys pulled off his belt and started whipping the other guy with his belt.
What do you do in that situation?
Well, we were all like a bunch of high schoolers, so we were like, all right, everybody get back on the bus. Lock the doors.
Can you imagine if someone did that to you, like just randomly, like they got mad and just
Started hitting you with
hitting you
I
with
guess
a
I'd
belt,
rather have
like,
that than maybe a gun or a knife or.
True.
Can you think about
You
how humiliating it would be if, like, someone, when they're mad at you, they pull off their belt and like started like spanking you in public, or like, like what?
Yeah, that would be embarrassing.
As an adult.
Well, as an adult, yeah, or as a kid, really.
As a kid, yeah, it's true.
Well, I did look up some. This is some Indiana Jones trivia I have here,
okay.
but I tried to go easy on it because it's been a while since probably we've all watched these. So this is just which movie does it appear in?
All right.
So I thought that would be a little bit easier.
Kill the monkey brains. Mm-hmm. Is that the first one?
Temple Doom. That's the second one.
Yep.
Okay, so here's
The first question I meant.
first question right here. In which Indiana Jones movie does someone try to kill Indy?
Isn't it
All of them.
You're correct. It's all of them. I went with an easy one. Trouble just seems to find Indy for some reason. People are always out to try to kill him. What
It
did he
belongs
do?
in the museum, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
It belongs in a museum.
Okay, here's a little harder one.
Okay.
In which Indiana Jones movie does Indy look into the Well of Souls? The Well of Souls.
The Well of Souls. Hold on. Is it number one?
He finds snakes in there. So
three.
Wait, which one was number one?
That's the Ark of the Covenant is number one, but
Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yes.
Then you are correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
First one.
Very good. That was so he looks in there and he actually finds snakes.
Yes.
If you remember.
Yes.
Which snakes is a running theme.
Snakes.
He
Why
does
does it
not
gotta
like
be snakes. Which I can't blame him. I'm not a fan of snakes either. See, me and Indiana Jones have a lot in common, apparently.
Whips. We hate snakes. Which kind
Okay.
of look like whips.
Yeah.
Nature's whips.
In which Indiana Jones movie which Indiana Jones movie won an Oscar for best film editing, which is a highly coveted Oscar.
I'm going to say 3.
Okay.
I'm
Number
gonna
3,
say-
the Raiders or the Crusade one, the Last Crusade.
The Last Crusade. I'll go with Temple of Doom, number
Okay.
2.
I'm gonna go with Raiders of the Lost Ark because I'm looking at the answer.
He's got the
You are both wrong.
It always is the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Always the original.
It was nominated for 8 Oscars and won 4. Believe it or not. So was that the first one?
Yeah.
Did we
Yes.
conclude
Yep.
that was the first
It's
one?
Ark of the,
Raiders
Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and the Last Crusade.
Okay. So here's a good one. I like this one.
None of these are going to be the Crystal Skull, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't
hope
seen the
not.
newest
I
one.
hope
Okay.
not either.
In which Indiana Jones movie was there a mine cart chase? Which
Temple
was
of
one of
Doom.
my favorite scenes.
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom is correct.
That's what the Kings Island ride is based off of. That.
Oh yes, yeah. The
Adventure Express.
Adventure Express. Yeah.
Because when Paramount used to own Kings Island,
Okay.
that's when they like.
Okay, and this is one I know you'll get. We should ask Matt. Do you like Indiana Jones movies?
I've not seen them in
Okay, never mind. Let's
Get
ask,
out.
Let's ask John this question then.
Uh-oh.
You don't answer it, Andrew, because
All right.
I'm pretty sure you know this one. Which Indiana Jones movie had filming locations in Petra?
Well, obviously, it's The Last Crusade.
Yes, because you mentioned
It is
that
true.
on Sunday.
It is true. Which I like. The thing is, Temple of Doom used to be my favorite when I was a kid, just because all that crazy stuff that happened. But as I got older, I'm like Sean Connery and Harrison Ford together in that one.
Yeah, I'd say The Last Crusade is my favorite one. But Temple of Doom, there's some classic moments in that one for sure.
Yes. Well, hey, fun fact for you, real quick. As we're talking about Indiana Jones facts, Temple of Doom is the reason why there's a PG-13 rating. Did you guys know that? So when that movie came out, it was rated PG technically, but they said it was too, like there's a lot of scary stuff in it. So I said all they had was PG to R. They're like, we need something in between because young kids shouldn't be watching this.
What about the young indie stuff? Did you like that?
I remember watching it as a kid, but like I never got into it.
I have fond memories of it because we would always go to the library and rent the video. And then, or not rent, but borrow.
Yeah. Right.
So that's one of the things we always got. But
the library always came in clutch for those things. Always came in clutch. What is your favorite Indiana Jones?
Oh, definitely The Last Crusade.
Okay.
Sean Connery. That he just did a great job, and you got the Nazis there. I don't know. Nazis make almost every movie better.
I was gonna say they're in the first one too, though, which I always think is funny.
They were better in the third one because they had cooler stuff, like the tank scene and some of the other things.
One of my favorite scenes in that movie is when there's like they're in a plane, and Sean Connery, like with his umbrella, makes all the birds fly up and crash the plane. Like that's my favorite. I was like, that's so.
I will
weird.
say my absolute favorite scene is the one where he pulls the guy's heart out.
In Temple of Doom.
Whenever I go to Caesar's Creek and they have that like suspension bridge there, I always try to do it to my kids.
Just think about where he like has that. That's a cool scene where like he's in the middle of that thing,
and there's those crocodiles.
That's
below in the water.
My favorite scene is from Last Crusade. I thought you were going to say this when they're actually in the plane and Sean Connery's in the back with the gun and like he shoots and he shoots their own plane. He's like, "Son, I'm sorry, they got us." But he just spins in a circle and shoots their own tail.
Yep. All right. Well, let's get into some questions about your sermon on Sunday.
All right.
So, 21 verses.
Yeah.
So, just maybe tell us, was that challenging?
Did you memorize it?
Huh?
Did you memorize it?
I'll start with verse 1. I'll read.
Because you had to pull out an Old Testament story of, was it Jacob and Esau, right?
Yeah, Jacob and Esau. I mean, because that's the thing is when he told me Obadiah, and I read it the first time, I was like, what am I gonna do with this? This is about Edom, right? Which Edom is like was born in the nation of Esau, and so like. I was like, there's no way I can go through this book of Obadiah without doing that backstory, or else it just wouldn't make sense.
Well, yeah. Because why is this little place important?
Yeah, why are we talking about Edom right now?
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like, well, we have to start with this backstory of these two nations that were born in Rebekah and go from there. And then the challenging part was like, then what does this mean for us? Like, because it's a very specific message to this group of people of their issues and that they're going to be destroyed. And I was reading this, I'm like, man, this is like some heavy stuff of like, I didn't even read all of it on Sunday, but some of it was like, you're going to be a stubble and like, we're going to rule over you and all stuff. I'm like, what? Like, there's not a lot of hope in this book at all.
No, there were honestly, a lot of the minor prophets are kind of like that.
Yeah.
Just a lot of doom and gloom.
Yeah.
To some extent. And then hope.
Yeah. It ends with a lot of hope. Obadiah does.
We're doing, I believe it's Zephaniah right now in the morning Bible study.
Yeah.
And, that one also has a lot of doom and gloom, but then it also has a lot of hope in it too. But, that varies from minor prophet to minor prophet, how much hope comes with it.
I will say there was a lot of excitement when I found out that Indiana Jones was tied to this as I was studying. I was like, yes.
Yes, this is a great story.
This is great now.
Yes.
Hey guys, we're just going to watch this movie this Sunday. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Could you imagine if you preach, usually it's like if David's out of town, right?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if we approached preaching on the weeks that David was gone, like substitute teaching?
Just roll in a cart with a TV.
We're just gonna watch. We're gonna watch this video today. And
you guys ever seen The Last Crusade?
Yeah,
we're gonna have a devotion after.
Here's my favorite 35 minutes.
Which leads me here to our question, first question, which is about Edom, and their biggest issue is pride.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was pretty obvious in the book that pride is. So is there any good pride that exists? Because if we're taking this concept of pride and applying it to our lives, you kind of wonder, well, should I be proud of my kids, or should I be proud of the job that I did, or is that bad pride too?
Yeah, and so that's like where, like, on Sunday as I was preaching it, some of that came to my mind, and I kind of vocalized some of that because I'm like, man, I don't want people to think that, like, I can't be proud of something. Because the pride Edom had was, like, these things that were circumstantial that ultimately we as Christians would say were blessings from God, like where you live, your allies, your wisdom, which we know all wisdom comes from God. They took that, but they used it against people, and they used it to exploit people. So I tried to get across, like, that's the kind of pride that God hates, where you take these things that were given to you, and you say, well, I did this on my own, so I'm going to do with whatever I want with it, rather than, man, I'm so thankful that I'm blessed because of this, and I'm going to use it for the good. And so that's what I was like. I tried to get that across Sunday because I want everyone to think like, man, I am proud of my kids, or I am proud of, like, the hard work I've done to, like, in my job to reach this status, and those things are fine. Yeah, it's what do you do with those things?
So where do you think the line is crossed from, like, good pride to bad pride? Because you could have bad pride in your kids. You know, if you think that they can do no wrong and they're better than everybody else, right? So where does that
everybody
line?
else because my kids are so good at whatever,
Right, like my kids are so smart, your kids are so dumb.
Why'd you look at me when you said that, Steve?
I don't know. There was no.
My kid's a lot younger.
I wasn't trying to. No, there is. I think there can be a lot of, like, with amongst parents of, like, oh, my kid isn't walking yet, or hasn't started using sentences, or they can't read as well as so there's a lot of that, like, looking at other parents and saying, am I a bad parent because my kids?
That's easy for us to do. I mean, because even with our twins, it was, like, really cool to have twins, because all of a sudden you see these two that are developing at such different paces. That one's, like, developing physically a lot faster, and the other one's developing, like, cognitively a lot faster, and, like, so it was easier to have.
Which one is developing faster?
Well, physically,
just say boy or girl.
Physically girl.
Okay.
Cognitively boy.
Okay.
But now they're both kind of on the same pace. But I remember when we just had our first son. Yeah. Like, it was easy to look around and be like, oh man, like, what are we doing wrong? Yeah. That they're doing so great. Or sometimes have a relief, like, oh, okay, they're not doing that, but he is, right? And so, like, sometimes we just compare and contrast sometimes, and, like, it's so easy to do with your kids.
It's very true, because we have our younger son, Cade. He just kind of picked up reading on his own, did nothing. And then with Harper, we've had to put a whole lot of work and effort into it. And you just see it is purely a gift from God for him that he could just kind of pick up a book and just start reading. Yeah. It doesn't come natural to everybody. And that's when you start realizing, wow, life is kind of about what gifts we were given and the circumstances that we're put into.
Yeah, there's a lot of it is circumstantial. I mean, even with kids, sometimes it's like the way that they process things, or what they grew up with, and the next kid, some things may just be a little bit different without you even realizing it, and they pick things up faster, and you're not even sure why.
And that's a great lesson for us in a way that we can take this, book from the Bible and apply it to our lives of, like, when we start looking at others around us, we really are blessed in a lot of ways. And a lot of those things are not because of our doing. The hard work and the effort is, but the circumstances may not be.
Right. Well, that's the thing, their pride, they took what they had, and then they used it. The bad thing was they used it against God's people, and they exploited them in their weakness. And, we have this and you don't. And so that's what I want to get across. Pride necessarily, like, obviously pride is a huge sin, but there is a way that you can be proud of what you do without it being necessarily a sin.
Yeah. So when we start talking about this and we start talking about kids, something that I have seen a lot more in, I substitute teach at Dayton Christian. You've been around and still are around, middle school age a lot. And it's like, I do gym class sometimes, and these kids, especially the middle school boys, are, like, doing the taunting and the, dancing when they do something good and rubbing it in people's faces. I see what happens in, like, the NFL and the celebrations and in basketball. This is like a direct correlation to, like, our kids doing what these athletes are doing, and I don't like it. I don't know about you. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the NFL, well, college used to be really strict.
Yeah.
Like
is
it
it
was like,
less strict now, you
yes,
think?
they are allowed to celebrate now. But like college, it used to be like when you score a touchdown, you take the ball to the ref and hand it to him, and you walk off the field.
Yeah.
Right. And you just made the play. Now
Does
NFL,
this mean that I'm getting old if I don't like that and they're celebrating?
I don't like it. Well, the thing is, NFL is taking it way out of place because now they'll like go down as a whole team. Like there's an interception, the whole team will go down to the camera
the first
and do this
thing they do is
choreographed.
celebrate, and you notice that like towards the end of the game when there's like 2 minutes left, they're still celebrating and they got to get back to the line. You know?
Yes. And so yeah, it drives me nuts sometimes. I'm like, I think. And again, this is like like we were talking about with pride. Like you can celebrate and be happy for yourself, but then when you do it at the expense of the person that's losing, I think that's where like that line is.
Well, and there's this line too of it is okay to be happy. It is okay to rejoice. It is okay to celebrate. Like Scripture tells us, there are times and situations where we should do that, right? However, if we begin to believe that the good things in our lives are purely the result of us and not God, then all of a sudden that thing has become something we've put between us and God. And in a lot of ways, it's become an idol, right? We start to see ourselves as the source of all the good things in our lives, and we become really prideful in that. And so I think it's when you stop giving God the credit for what God has given you. You know, every blessing in my life is from God, right? And yes, there are good things in my life that have resulted from the hard work that I have done. But like, I use the gift God gave me. I still use the time God gave me and the access to those things that God provided for me. So I can't say it was all me ever. God was through that whole process. But I think the moment we start saying, look what I did this, I'm so great, I'm so awesome, give me credit, give me glory. I think we really cross that line, full speed into the pride that is no question to me. It's sin,
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, good discussion on pride. So why do you think pride is one of the root sins, the root of all? Why do you think it is that way?
Well, I think it's like, because there's and I should have had this ready, but in Proverbs, it's one of the first sins that says God hates a sin. And the thing is, it's like when you have this pride, and I kind of alluded to this on Sunday a little bit, and John talked about just then, it's like when you put your identity sometimes in the things that you do or what you have, different things like that, and all of a sudden like you have all these idols of like my money, my job, my friends, and like this is me. And that we know that like, man, people can get humbled really fast. Like you see it all the time, like guys are like, man, if I don't make it to the NFL, like I don't know what I'm gonna do because this is my life. And then like they get injured, and it's like all of a sudden they don't know what to do because that's all they've ever had, or whether it was money or their job or friends or whatever it may be. When it's gone, like what do you do? And so I think like it's that, because like with our kids we see it. That selfishness is there from the beginning, which is pride. It's all about me, which is funny. Our twin daughter, literally anytime you say to anybody, does anyone want, she immediately, me. I'm like, no, Esther, not you. And it's just like, everything is me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I think that's like the root cause, because we all are born just with the selfish bent of me. Like I'm more important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's why kids are helpful in life with pride, because you really do have to, especially in the younger years.
I got to humble them.
You get to, well, no, I wasn't going that direction with it. You kind of have to you have to sacrifice your own needs to take care of their needs.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want
marriage first. That's the first thing. It's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't make decisions that are only for me, like I was when I was single.
Right.
Then when you have kids, it's like, okay, now both of us have to like, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Do you let your kids win? Or do you not let them win to humble them?
It just depends. I think it depends. Like if I wouldn't do it all the time, but I might do it when we're playing a sport that I have like an extreme advantage in, with them. I might let them.
Let me ask you this. At this time in your life, in this stage with your kids, what sport do you not have an extreme advantage in?
Let's see. Like some video games, sometimes Kate's pretty good. I don't know if you consider that necessarily a sport.
Well, it changes from sport to activity, but yeah.
Some of those he's really good at. For some reason, he always wins at like Uno. We're not completely sure, but he's like really, really good at it. You know, it's kind of a game of chance, but
Yeah.
there's certain things
There's
like
some
that. For some
strategy
reason,
to those games.
There's a little bit of strategy, but
of when to play things.
yeah.
We used to play Uno all the time, and I play with I now call them the Holman rules.
Yeah.
But cheating's allowed. This is part of how Uno works and the way I grew up playing. So
Makes it more
it
interesting.
was way more fun that way.
More interesting.
Just don't get caught.
I let the kids win. I think I heard someone say there's like a 70-30 rule. I win 70% of the time. I'll let them win 30% of the time. But my wife would probably say it's more like 90-10,
Yeah.
that I don't let them win enough. But I'm like, hey, they got to know. They got to, work
We used to
towards
play
something.
this like matching game, where you'd put all the cards down and you'd flip them over. And my kids it's pretty equal as far as that. Sometimes they're even better than me at some of the like remembering
memory.
where,
Yeah.
fresh
That
minds.
just means you're getting older, so
Yeah.
that your memory is.
Are you good at those games?
Memory games?
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at memory games, yeah. We were talking yesterday about like dads and rough housing with their kids, and how I think, Andrew, you brought up kids that rough house with their dad end up being more empathetic, and they also have a lot more confidence.
Because you make them submit.
Well, no, we were thinking about this. It's like part of the confidence, and this is probably why they're able to be empathetic, though, is because when you know where you are, and you know your position, that your dad's got your back no matter what, and you can, one of the things that you can become confident in that helps you be secure enough to be empathetic. But part of that is because, like with my son, like he knows that he can wrestle me and he can fight with me as much as he wants, and I will not hurt him. But like it's still
Not on
fun.
purpose.
Not on purpose. Yeah,
So usually
there's
that's
some
how it ends.
accidentals.
he knows,
Usually
he knows
ends in
that
someone
like,
crying.
But like I body slam him all the time, and he's always giggling when it happens, right? But every once in a while, though, it will go too far, and then he'll be reminded, right, that oh wait, no, Dad is stronger than me, right? And there's just something kind of good in that. It's a safe way of him finding those boundaries or whatever, and that helps him be confident and secure. But there's times when we're roughhousing, I'm like, I'm going to remind you right now that I can lift you over my head.
Yeah.
And don't you forget it,
There's times we'll wrestle, right? You're always like, let's wrestle. Have you ever had the moment where like it's getting like really intense, and then all of a sudden like he'll stand up and like punch you in the face without like not even thinking? Because there's been a couple times where like we act like we're hitting each other and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and like he'll get up and be like boom, and I'm like oh, and like he kind of like stops like oops, like
he always gets me in the eye.
Does
It's
he?
always straight in the eye, and it hurts. It's like because it doesn't feel like a punch. He like just pokes my eye, and that's like
it's like
the most
buddy,
annoying
we
thing.
don't punch in the face.
When your kids were little, did they ever want to just like touch your eyeball?
Yes.
I don't understand that. Like my kids would try to do that to the dog too.
Ezra the other day.
Yes, the dog,
This was probably a few
especially.
months ago, but I was laying there and he looks over and he's like really close to my face. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I want to lick your eye." I said, "No,
What?
You don't lick eyes. That's weird.
I want to
No.
lick your
I
eye.
want to lick your eye."
Mine would always every
That
single
sounds
kid
like it would be painful.
yeah,
licking the
It
eye.
sounds awful, right?
Sounds like a good way to
I
get
hate
an eye
eye drops.
infection.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah. My kids would always just grab my beard. Like
That's
as
the
like when they're
worst.
little and just
Oh.
like grab it. And like I'll be holding them. They just like grab
that
it.
baby grip. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I feel like it is the strongest thing in the world when a toddler or a baby just grabs.
And
something,
sometimes
they
the
will not let
fastest
go.
hands too.
Yeah,
It's
like
crazy.
you can't walk, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
I'm guessing that's like their only reflex really at that time. So
Yeah.
it's like
to
super
grab and
fast.
hold
Like,
on. Yes.
I did it.
Okay, so last question that I have here of sermon questions, which is so we live in a country that we can worship freely. That's not true everywhere in the world, and there are definitely places where Christians are persecuted for their beliefs. What would you say to someone who is suffering in life and being persecuted for just following Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, because that's where that's basically the second part of this.
Yeah.
Is Obadiah starts giving that hope, right? That hope that you're being persecuted, you're being exploited, you're being treated unjustly, but just know that there's a day where Jesus is going to come and right all those wrongs. And I think that's where Christians got to understand there's this hope. It's not a hope that everything is going to be fine now, but it's a hope that I can be fine now knowing that this is what's to come, and that I have that I have Jesus who's been through it, who was persecuted, right? Like persecuted beyond belief, and made it through. And so like I have his spirit with me during this time as well. That's where I said, I always want to make it clear, like I'm not saying that when you follow Jesus, it's going to cure it, but it will help you endure it.
Yeah.
And so that's like what the main message is like, because I was like, we don't know how Edom took this message. They were destroyed 100 years later. But if you're Israel hearing this message of like, hey, like this happened, but just know that like their time's coming. So it's not up to you to take care of it, but like know that like one day all those wrongs are going to be set straight, basically.
Yeah. I think there is peace in that. I'm not sure. At the moment, there may not be a lot of comfort, right?
And that's okay sometimes to tell people like, yeah, it's a tough time, because you never want to just be like, hey, you're down, don't be down, everything's fine. Like, no, it's like, yeah, it does stink, and there could be times for like those things. My favorite verse is John 16:33, where before Jesus goes to heaven, he tells his disciples, I've told you all these things, everything I taught you, so that in me that you'll have hope, because in this world you're going to have troubles. So he tells them that you're going to have troubles, but take heart because I've overcome it. Mm-hmm. So like, there's that, you are going to be like persecuted. There are going to be troubles in life. There's going to be disease. There's going to be sickness. There's going to be times of not much money or any of those things. Like, but know that there's hope and there's peace because I've overcome all these things. That doesn't mean we don't work hard to, overcome situations ourselves. We can do those things, but yeah, it's weird, and it's a hard conversation sometimes to have of like, because many people just want, well, why isn't he fixing it? Mm-hmm. Why, like he has the power to fix it? Like, yeah, he does, but sometimes. I think we were
talking about that topic last week with David. Of we generally want to move away from pain and move towards comfort in life.
Yeah.
So the concept of like, hey, it's okay to suffer, or there is growth in suffering, is something that most people don't really understand.
Yeah. I like in one of my Bible classes, we talked about how Paul, he like prayed, I think it was 3 times for God to remove the thorn from his side. We don't know what that was, but we'd imagine it's a physical ailment. And then it just became this, okay, well now help me like just live with this now. And I think we don't ever get to that point where it's like, it's okay to say, man, will you help me like cure this? Because we believe that God can cure things and overcome things, but also like, where do we ever like draw that line? Like, okay, maybe this is me now. So now God, can you help me endure this and like live life and still have joy and peace, maybe even with this physical ailment or whatever it may be.
Yeah. We always like, we talk about how, we say things like, we always say it in sports concepts, but like in Philippians, I can do all things through Christ, right? And we always think of it as like, I can do this, achieve this thing, do this great thing. But the context of that verse is really, I can endure all things. So even when life is hard, I can endure and I can overcome because of Christ, because of what he's done for us. And when we like to look at that, we like to think of it as like the end result, like you accomplish something, you get through it. But you don't, to get through something, you have to go through that thing, and to go through that thing, that process is endurance. And life is, I think one of the hard things we struggle with is we don't really know the difference in, 2023 in the United States. For a lot of us, we don't know suffering versus discomfort, right? So the moment my life gets uncomfortable, I start going, oh, why am I suffering? It's like, well, you're not really suffering. You're just going through something that is challenging or something that is hard. There are people who are truly suffering, and it always ends up coming back to the whole gratitude thing, right? Paul could endure that thorn in his side because he was focused on and grateful for Christ and the work that Christ had called him to, right? And I think for us, often we have to get to that place to say, I'm going to endure this because of the greater thing, because of what Christ has called me to is higher. And that's not dependent upon how I feel at the moment. That's not dependent upon how good I feel about my life or how hard my life is. I'm still called to this thing, so I'm going to pursue Christ and I'm going to focus on him in all those situations. And because of that, I can do all things. I can endure all things because I'm focused on Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pride, bad. Acknowledging God, good.
There you go.
Let's sum it up.
That really is. That's it right there, man. So,
All right. Well, thanks for spending some time with us on this podcast, growing together.
The greenhouse.
The greenhouse.
The greenhouse.
Growing
Yes, it was
together.
great being here.
Yep. And have a great rest of your day. See you.